Let's learn how to draw a sphere in charcoal. This is going to be easy. Start out with a tape roll or anything round that you can lightly trace. Use your vine charcoal or your willow charcoal to very, very softly make a super soft circle around your shape. It's a circle, it's not a sphere yet because it's not shaded. Then I'm going to use a piece of paper, but you can use a ruler, use whatever you have on hand that's straight, to create the ground that your sphere is going to be sitting on. And just very lightly make a long line on each side of your sphere. Okay, we've got the shape now. Time to establish your shadow. Think about where the light will be coming from. In my drawing, it's coming from the upper right hand corner, kind of in the front, middle, I guess, kind of on the side of the sphere, I guess. I am going to make the background darker because it makes the sphere stand out, but you'll see where the light is coming from, and that's why I made that little shape on the bottom so I can establish where my shadow will be. I'm just kind of getting in here with my vine charcoal just to darken up the background. This way, if I mess up, I can just kind of rub that vine charcoal right off with a rag, and I don't have to worry about it being perfect right now. I'm just kind of marking in where I'm going to make the darkest parts of my sphere. So I like to use a piece of paper under my hand because I am a lefty. Any other lefties out there, you know the plight that we all have. We absolutely smear everything, and our entire left hand up to our elbow is often covered in art supplies if you're an artist. I don't know, I read somewhere that there are a lot of people that are artists that are lefties. Could be true. I know Leonardo da Vinci was a lefty, so feel good about that if you're a lefty. If you're a righty, you can still be an artist. So now I'm using my charcoal pencil, and I'm actually using my 6B pencil, and I'm just kind of getting in there, and I'm adding a lot of darkness. I'm not afraid. I'm just pushing on that, and I'm just going for it. I do try to be really careful of the edges of my sphere. I don't want to make it messy. I want to keep it really clean. The cleaner I keep it in the beginning, the cleaner it will be in the end, and it'll be easier to add that precision and erase when I get to the end. So I'm not going to cover my whole paper with the background. If I were going to finish like a long finished drawing, I would probably start out with toned paper. Toned paper is where you kind of lightly rub your charcoal. Usually it's compressed charcoal on the side over your whole paper, and then just kind of smudge it. And then you use reductive techniques, which is where you erase and add and erase and kind of start with a gray paper. I'm just starting with white paper. I'm keeping it simple. So now I'm going to start adding in my shadow. And my shadow is kind of coming down in the shape. And right now it's not perfect. I'll kind of figure out how I want to make it. Right now I'm going to focus on shading that sphere and doing it the best I can. But again, charcoal is not pencil. So it can be expressive. It can have lines showing. It can be a little bit in between cross-hatching and shading. It does not have to be perfectly smooth. I'm just kind of filling in things right now with my charcoal pencil. It always starts out messy and it gets better. It does take quite a long time. It feels like with charcoal or with any kind of drawing project that you do that it starts out messy and you get to a point where you kind of feel like you want to stop. You think like this is done, it's good enough. And if you keep pushing and keep perfecting, then you know when it's done. You just know. And then there's that point where you keep going and you do too much and then you mess it up because you're too stressed out. So when you kind of get into the groove a little bit, just keep going and you'll know when it's done. So now I'm starting on my sphere. So watch this as I go with my charcoal pencil, using my 2B charcoal pencil, and I'm just slowly using the curves of the sphere to create the shadow. So my direction of my lines kind of go in the direction as the curve would go on the sphere. And I'm starting out really light. I have darkened this video a little bit so that you can see the lines, but it does start out really light. Charcoal works best when you do it in layers. Adding more and more layers is always better than trying to get it right the first time. And don't be afraid to use that piece of paper under your hand. If you notice how I'm holding my charcoal pencil, I hold it a little bit differently than I think most people do. I kind of wrap my entire thumb around it, which is kind of weird. But I think everybody has their own way, and if you try many different ways to hold your charcoal pencil, you'll find the way that works for you. For me, it's what I can get the most motion in my wrist with, and I'm very lightly touching the paper. I'm just doing layer after layer, and I'm just very, very lightly touching the paper. So however it works for you to hold your pencil, and practice those things. Practice some value scales before you get to this sphere, which you can see in my other lesson. It'll make you a much, much better artist. You might notice that I've left a band of white along the bottom of my sphere. It's kind of looking oblong right now because it's not perfectly shaped, but what that is that is called reflected light. And when the table has got light on it, it bounces back on the sphere and leaves a little bit of reflected light on the bottom of the sphere. So I'm just going to leave that, and that helps to establish the kind of 3D quality of it. You're going to go very, very near to the edge though. Right now I've kind of got a lot of space between the table and that white band on the sphere. I'm just leaving that open. I'm going to fill that up a little bit, and it's just going to be a tiny little line, but that is one of those little tricks that artists can use to make things look more 3D that a lot of people don't know about. Now I'm smearing this with my finger. I'm going to use a tortillon probably later, but right now I just kind of smear that pencil with my finger and bring that shadow up. Remember, it's easier to add than it is to take away. So adding more charcoal and doing it in lighter, smaller, thinner layers usually creates a more realistic look. You can see that the shadow is definitely far from perfect right now, but it'll get better. So here I'm going to go a little bit down in that edge, and this is where you want to be very careful and very precise. Keep it really clean and sharp. I straightened out that line a little bit. It was kind of wonky. So the shadow, you can get really aggressive. Get that charcoal in there and just like go for it. I switched to my carbon pencil. The carbon pencil is the darkest of the charcoal pencils. It doesn't smudge as much as the 6B pencil. It smudges less, but it's very dark. So when you start to get some of those dark shadows in there, you really want to get into that. You can use the 6B. I'm using the carbon because I know that I want this to be the darkest part of my sphere and I don't want it to smudge. So see how lightly I'm going over that? And just adding and adding. Sometimes it's funny to narrate these things in real time, and I don't know exactly what to say, but I don't want to speed it up because I want you to see exactly how long it takes to do this type of thing. And this is, for me, I am an artist. I work as an artist. I have an art degree, so I do this all the time. If you are a beginner, it will take you quite a bit longer. You can't just wake up one morning and throw down a realistic charcoal sphere in like whatever, 15 minutes. It could take you a couple days, especially if you get tired or if you work slowly. Some people don't have the ability to move their hand as fast, so just do it at your own pace. Take your time, do what you can do. Maybe put it away if you're feeling tired or frustrated. Art should never make you feel frustrated or tired. It should make you feel calm and happy. I sound like a hippie art teacher. Notice that I'm still using that paper under my hand, but I also have to be careful not to actually move the paper because there is going to be a lot of charcoal on this sphere. It can easily smudge. One trick that you can do, something that I didn't do in mine because I'm going to finish it all in one sitting, is if you need to stop, you can spray it with a fixative. And so whatever you've done for the time being, if it's perfect the way that you like it, then you can spray it and it won't move, and then you can come back to it. That's called a workable fixative. There is a final fixative that you can spray that you can't draw over, but a workable fixative just holds your charcoal in place so that you can keep working on it. It's pretty great. I used to use Aquanet hairspray when I was in college because we didn't have any money for art supplies, and instead of buying fixative that was like $7 a can, Aquanet was 99 cents, and it works just as well. So now I'm getting in there with the compressed charcoal. Compressed charcoal is basically charcoal powder ground up and pressed with a binder. And it has a lot of color, or not color, it has a lot of darkness to it and a lot of charcoal. And you can put a lot down on the page if you press hard. So that looks a little dark, but compressed charcoal smudges pretty well. So just wait and see, and I will smudge it. Now I'm going to start to really press on the charcoal and get super dark. That is where no light is hitting on my sphere. And I know it looks really kind of broken up. It goes from dark to medium to light, and it's really extreme, but it is going to be blended pretty soon. I'm going to start with my finger And I'm just going to go really softly. I press a little harder where the charcoal is darker, and then I lift my finger up a little bit, and I'm barely touching the paper where it goes toward the middle. So I'm just going to go circular, and it goes in a little bit, and I know you're going to get some weird little smudgies in the middle, but we are going to talk about how to use an eraser as a drawing tool as well. So see where I have that little smudgy in the middle? It's not so great yet, but it's getting there. That's the thing about art, is you just have to know that it'll get there. It takes patience and practice, and anyone can do it. So I'm going to smudge the background. Establishing dark areas is kind of a trick for making your art look a little bit more professional, making things dark enough and really filling the space, thinking about positive and negative space. That's how you can tell a newbie if they have a tiny little circle in the middle of their page and not any kind of background. So here I go with the eraser. I'm just going to use the eraser as a drawing tool. I'm using a black eraser. You can use any kind of eraser. Kneaded erasers are also really nice with charcoal. And I just get in there, and sometimes you have to press pretty hard to get those highlights. This one has a sharp edge, so I can take the sharp edge and I can add highlights there. I'm going to get in there with my compressed charcoal, and I'm going to add the rest of the background. I'm not going too close to the sphere right now because I do have to be a little bit more precise. So I'm just going to go around the sphere, and I'm pressing pretty hard, but I'm not being careless on this. So with the edge, I want to be really careful and precise. I do love smudging it. It's so satisfying smudging the charcoal with your fingers. It's probably why I've never really used the smudge sticks that much. It's just kind of fun. It's like being a little kid and finger painting. Sometimes if you're making a drawing of something that's realistic, you can get crazy with the background and make it really expressive. I don't have a lot of patience. I think charcoal is something for people that don't have patience to be super, super precise. Whereas graphite, you kind of have to be that way. Charcoal, you can just get crazy and scribble and make something that's halfway decent. So I've got my sphere kind of put down. This is where I need to get in there with the precision. So I am now going to use my 2B pencil, and I'm going to get in here and I'm going to start adding some real precision lines to make it round out a little bit. It's still looking a little bit wonky, so I am going to add a little bit of the background, the table. And I know the background's not quite perfect. I'm going to get my eraser and just kind of clean that edge up where the light would hit. And in terms of where the light hits, there's no wrong way to do it. If you just think about where would a light be shining on a round object, and if you get it wrong, it's fine. I did a whole demonstration in front of an entire class one day of drawing a cone, and I made the light coming from one direction, and I made the shadow on the wrong side, and I felt like such an idiot. It was hilarious. One of my students raised their hand and said, Miss Swain, you made the shadow on the wrong side. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to show you how not to do it. So everybody does that. Consider it practice. And I'm using my eraser to kind of add some highlights in here just to clean that up. This black eraser works really well. Be careful not to inhale the charcoal dust. Here's where I get in with my tortillon. Now this is where that little tiny tortillon, the General's tortillon, works really well. You can pull down your line on your shadow edge and just really precision smooth things up a little bit. But you want to wait kind of till the end on that one. And as you see, it does pull quite a lot of charcoal up. You can pull the charcoal up into the light parts of your paper, or you can pull the charcoal down away from the light parts of your paper. So just watch how I do this. And again, it's still not precise in the middle, but it's getting better. It's the finishing touches that are going to make your sphere look as good as you can make it look. So think about getting a white charcoal pencil or your tortillon. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that my tortillon is really clean. I'm going to take a step back and really look at it and see what can I do to make the transitions from light to dark as smooth as possible. And what can I do to make those little edges that I have on the sides that are white as smooth as possible and nice and small. So I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to blend this up. And this is kind of where the patience pays off. You think that you're done, and then you just kind of have to add more and more and more. So I'm going to keep smudging, and it will get better and better. And for this one, I didn't even end up using my white charcoal pencil, except for in the beginning when I kind of went around those edges. I could probably finish this off a little bit more, and maybe I'll do that in another video, just try to make it perfect. But for now, I'm kind of just concentrating on making a sphere that is expressive and easy and perfect for the beginner. I know that when you look at this at first, it looks like something that you couldn't do. But if you watch this video a couple times, you can turn the sound off if my voice bugs you. I don't like listening to my own voice either. And you can just watch the process in real time, or you can speed it up. So I'm going to take my eraser and add a few more soft little highlights here. Sometimes it helps to have a brush, but even a brush can smudge the charcoal a little bit. So I'm just going to blow that off instead. It is really hard to try to smudge something when you have filthy, dirty hands, so I tend to use my eraser a lot. And sometimes I have to stop and go wash my hands, take a break. This is like 16 minutes of solid work. And I'm going to go back in another video and show how to really finish this and make it into an amazing finished piece. But there's something about the expression and the line work that I kind of like. I kind of like it when it's not too perfect. So I'm going to add in a couple of little details in the bottom with my eraser. Just going to round it out just a bit. And I just pull that eraser up from that bounced reflection. Kind of cleans it up a little bit. And there you have it. Pretty much done for now. I'm going to go back in. Another fun thing that you can do if you have an eraser is you can use it to kind of smudge the background or to draw back in some texture. Another thing that I like to do when I'm doing shading is you can use charcoal powder and a brush and add in texture with a brush, and it's almost like painting with powder. It's like doing makeup or something. So here I'm taking my eraser and I'm just kind of smudging the background. And I've got a little bit more expression in it. And there you have it. Pretty much finished. So you have that for your sketchbook. Make sure to fix it with some fixative and go out and make some fun art.